So, I don't necessarily have a review for you today, but instead I'd like to talk about something I have realized recently that could be useful to bear in mind if you happen to be a nerd, like me. If you like superheroes, for instance, like Superman or Batman. Batman, in particular, is one character who never really seems to be able to escape the pop culture zeitgeist, if you will. The city of Gotham, Batman's hometown, is often set apart from the rest of the DC universe due to its very dark tone and criminal elements. It's captured the hearts and minds of fans for decades now. And Gotham's most notorious threat, the Joker, Batman's arch nemesis, has also become something of a popular figure. Unfortunately, because today I'd like to talk about the Joker and how I am kind of sick and tired of him. The Joker is a character who I love, but who drives me crazy because of how he's held to a certain standard, a standard that seems to degenerate with each passing second of its own existence. Allow me to explain. Batman, of all people, is allowed much more wiggle room than even the Joker, I think, in terms of characterization. Though he does suffer, don't get me wrong. And after watching shows like The Penguin and movies like The Batman, and then replaying the Batman Arkham series of video games, I have begun to question how these characters, heroes, villains, all of them, can and should be portrayed in future works. For instance, Mark Hamill's performance as the Joker is terrific. In my opinion, he is the Joker, and he's never really even given a bad Joker to work with. And I think he excels so spectacularly in the role because he is not, under any circumstances, Heath freaking Ledger. Heath Ledger's Joker from the movie The Dark Knight, this famous villain that everyone loves, I used to despise because he is this scarred, mean spirited terrorist trying to make a point about society. That just doesn't really work for me. It doesn't strike me as the Joker. I've always preferred the Joker to be this sort of wacky, pointless, funny, don't get me wrong, a scary villain. Now you might be thinking, Heath Ledger's Joker is perfectly funny, and you would be right. That was an unfair assessment on my part, and he works for what he's there for. I believe, especially after some of the more recent adaptations of the character, that maybe I judged Heath Ledger a bit too harshly. He is a fun villain and a good villain for the story they were trying to tell. But I still prefer, out of all the live action performances, Jack Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker. He was a he was a very unique villain in a lot of ways, and ridiculous and still dangerous, don't get me wrong. He had all the fun gadgets which aren't exactly realistic, but if you bind your world with the right rules and structures, I think if you reinforce certain conceits of the genre, you can introduce the Joker's sort of trick weapons and laughing gas and whatnot without issue, just as long as it makes sense within the universe presented. Like, it wouldn't have made much sense if Heath Ledger used laughing gas and uh, various trick guns and such. But the point I'm trying to make, I guess, is that since Heath Ledger, people have been sort of portraying the Joker in roughly the same way. Jared Leto, even, while not having much to say about society necessarily, is that same sort of grungy, dirty, serial killery nutcase, right? Whereas Joaquin Phoenix, on the other hand, is not so grungy necessarily, but he has everything to say about society, and it just doesn't feel very much like the Joker, really. He's just kind of a guy in clown makeup. But I digress. Um, the Joker, in my opinion, doesn't really have to follow a certain mold. At least, maybe he shouldn't. He usually works best and is a more entertaining villain, shall we say, when he's not some sort of serial killer who cuts off his own face, for instance, but when he's playing the part of the jester, the fool, this wild, crazy, dangerous villain, yes, who is creepy, don't get me wrong, but who is also very dramatic uh, and extremely charismatic in a way. You don't necessarily need Heath Ledger or Alan Moore to be your guide when portraying this character. The Joker doesn't even need to be the main villain of a story. I mean, not to take another jab at the Batman, but I was frankly disappointed by the sort of rotten, sore covered, weirdo Joker that we had in a deleted scene, mind you, but nevertheless. Um, like, give me, please, no Joker at all, if all you're going to do is give me something that I've already seen in the past 5, 10 years or so. Revive Jack Nicholson's style of Joker, his panache for wickedness, or even Cesar Romero's sort of tongue-in-cheek, cartoony, villainous shenanigans. Give me something fresh or give me something classic, not the repackaged, new, modernized stories that I'm already kind of familiar with and kind of bored with. Better yet, maybe even we should take a break from the Joker. Maybe give me Scarecrow or Killer Croc as the main villain of a story. If you don't think they can work as main villains, look no further than I believe the comic was called Kings of Fear, or better yet, look at Arkham Knight, the video game for our boy Jonathan Crane, or for that matter, look at the subtle performance of Killer Croc in Grant Morrison's A Serious House on Serious Earth, in which he plays into this sort of symbolism and mythology. Croc fills the role of the great dragon doing battle with frickin' Saint Michael, which honestly, Croc is one of the few things in that particular graphic novel that I actually think was I think it was handled rather well. Um, Despite my I don't have a lot of love for that story, for the other aspects of it, but uh, but I digress once again. Imagine a Bone Tomahawk or a the Descent type story where Killer Croc is the sort of main antagonist, the primal wicked force of evil going up against the lawful and just Batman, right? Batman who sees the good in everyone, who believes in humanity and justice, versus Waylon Jones, who sees only the bad and has even given up on his own humanity to live instead as this sort of monster, the monster that the humans have painted him as, right? Imagine a Silence of the Lambs or even a Silent Hill type story revolving around the Scarecrow, making use of his fear gas to create this twisted nightmare world, or perhaps even to prove a point to Batman himself. But the point being, we live in an era where comic book adaptations can be so good, can involve magic and passion and religion, where the frickin' comic book adaptation can be the equivalent of the next great American novel, right? Stories that can be more than just thrillers and transcend even the original cartoonish and bizarre stories that, um, like of the old world, the old era of comics, right? once we let stagnation kick in my opinion, and once we're forced to constantly adapt the same characters over and over again, this weird, gritty serial killer Joker, the deep voiced, scary Batman who's breaking limbs and probably killing people by this point. Once we do this over and over and over again without any real creativity or even fun or imagination going into these stories, then I think we're dead and doomed. So, yeah, like and subscribe. It helps a lot. And I'll be back soon, probably with a review of a book, movie, or show. But you never know with me. So, yeah. Bye.